The Young and the Restless Spoilers, the unveiling of Audra's family secret, a tangled web of lies and loyalties. Genoa City is a town that thrives on secrets, and just when it seems like every layer of intrigue has been uncovered, a new revelation shakes the foundations. Audra Charles, a woman who has carefully constructed her identity on ambition, manipulation, and charm, has always been a bit of a mystery. Though she has made her mark in Genoa City, climbing the social and corporate ladders with ease, one piece of her history has remained locked away until now. The identity of Audra's father, an unanswered question that has hovered over her life like a shadow, is finally being revealed. And as with everything else in Audra's world, this revelation comes with more questions than answers. For years, the story of Audra's upbringing was a carefully crafted one. She was presented as a woman who had overcome adversity, a girl orphaned at a young age, raised in a juvenile facility, and molded by the hard lessons of a difficult life. Audra's backstory always painted her as a self-made woman who had to fight her way to the top, relying on her wits and survival instincts. But now, it seems that the truth was far more complex than anyone realized. The truth about Audra's parentage, a family tie that changes everything. Audra, the fierce and calculating woman who has kept her past buried beneath layers of deflection and power games, has now been confronted with a truth that she could never have imagined. The man who has been a silent figure in her life, the one whose absence shaped her identity in ways she never fully understood, is none other than Nick. Yes, Nick Newman, the very same man whose name has been synonymous with the Newman legacy and the complicated family dynamics that have been at the heart of Genoa City's drama for decades. It turns out that the family Audra thought was a mere mirage of pain and loneliness is far more interconnected than she could have guessed. For all the years that Audra moved through Genoa City, asserting herself as a woman of power and mystery, she had no idea that her own bloodline was entangled with the Newmans, a family that has seen its own share of ambition, betrayal, and heartbreak. It all started when Audra noticed an uncanny resemblance between herself and Nick. As she observed him from afar, she couldn't help but wonder why certain mannerisms, certain expressions, seemed so familiar to her. Something deep inside her told her that there was more to her connection with the Newmans than mere happenstance. Fueled by a mixture of curiosity and suspicion, Audra took matters into her own hands and secretly underwent a DNA test. The results were unmistakable. Truth was inescapable. Audra was Nick Newman's daughter, the man who raised Audra, Tucker's role in her life. But while Audra's biological father might be Nick, her upbringing had been a far cry from the luxury and privilege that the Newman family is known for. Instead of growing up with the Newmans, Audra's life had been shaped by the enigmatic Tucker McCall, a man who had been both a mentor and a protector. For years, Tucker had been the father figure Audra never had, taking her under his wing and raising her as if she were his own. In a town where alliances shift like quicksand, Tucker had been a steadying force in Audra's life, a father figure who showed her the ropes of survival and business in Genoa City. However, the bond between Audra and Tucker was never straightforward. Though he treated her like a daughter, their relationship was complicated by Tucker's own turbulent personal life. His love affair with Ashley Abbott, a woman he once held dear, had created tension in their dynamic. Audra had always been aware of the tension between Tucker and Ashley, though she never fully understood the depth of it. As Tucker's relationship with Ashley grew stronger, his presence in Audra's life began to wane, leaving her to navigate the treacherous waters of Genoa City without the constant support of the man who had been her father figure. Now, with Tucker out of the picture and his own life taking a different direction, Audra finds herself facing the reality of a family that had been kept from here, a family that, unbeknownst to her, is far more complex than she could have imagined. The fact that Tucker, the man who raised her, is no longer by her side only adds to the layers of confusion and betrayal Audra feels as she grapples with this newfound knowledge. Audra's struggle with her identity, a battle between loyalty and truth. This revelation about Audra's true parentage doesn't just shake the foundations of her personal life, it threatens to upend her entire existence. As the daughter of Nick Newman, Audra is now a direct part of the Newman legacy, one of the most powerful and influential families in Genoa City. But how will she reconcile this new identity with the woman she has worked so hard to become? Can she balance her loyalty to the family who raised her with the bloodline she now shares with one of her biggest competitors? Audra's relationship with the Newmans, especially with Nick, will undoubtedly be complicated. While she may have always felt a certain distance from the family, now that the truth has come to light, she is forced to confront her connection to them in a way that cannot be ignored. Will she seek out a relationship with Nick, or will she distance herself from the family that she once viewed from the outside? And how will her revelation affect her standing in Genoa City, especially among her colleagues and rivals? With the power plays of Newman Enterprises, the Abbott family dynamics, and the ever-shifting alliances in the city, Audra's place in the world is suddenly uncertain. The impact on Audra's relationship with Claire. Perhaps the most immediate fallout from this revelation is the impact it will have on Audra's strained relationship with Claire Grace Newman. The two women have had their share of conflicts, and now that Audra's true parentage is revealed, Claire's reaction will be critical. As the granddaughter of Victor Newman, Claire has always been intricately tied to the Newman legacy, and the fact that Audra is now revealed to be Nick's daughter could make her an even more formidable force to be reckoned within the corporate world. Claire, who has already been grappling with her own ambitions and the professional challenges that come with them, will now find herself in an even more complicated position. How will she handle Audra's newfound status as a Newman? Will it drive a wedge between the two women, or will it create an unexpected bond forged through their shared ties to the Newman family? One thing is certain: Audra's revelation will only add to the growing tension between the two women, complicating Claire's already precarious position at Chancellor Industries. The larger implications for Genoa City's power structure. This shocking revelation about Audra's parentage is more than just a personal story. It has massive implications for the power dynamics in Genoa City. With Audra now officially a Newman, her alliances and actions will be scrutinized in ways they never were before. The Newmans, already a powerful force in the city, now have a new player in their midstone who is skilled, ruthless, and not afraid to use her connection to the family to further her own ambitions. Meanwhile, other characters like Kane Ashby, who has been looking for a way to take down Victor, will likely see this revelation as an opportunity. With Audra now firmly linked to the Newman family, Kane may attempt to leverage this knowledge to his advantage, perhaps even manipulating Audra into helping him further his own agenda. As always in Genoa City, the intersection of personal and professional motives creates a volatile mix, and Audra's newfound identity will only fuel the fire. Conclusion: Audra's future in Genoa City. As Audra Charles steps into her new reality as the daughter of Nick Newman, the world around her will shift in ways she can't yet imagine. The tension between her loyalties to Tucker and her newfound blood ties to the Newman family will create a storm that will reverberate throughout Genoa City. Her relationships with key figures, including Claire, Victor, and Nick, will be tested, and the consequences of her past actions will finally catch up with her. Genoa City may be known for its power struggles, betrayals, and scandals, but Audra's revelation brings a new level of intrigue to the table. As she navigates her complex identity and her place within the Newman family, Audra will have to decide how far she's willing to go to claim her birthright, and, in the process, she may just reshape the future of the Newmans and of Genoa City itself. Nick's shocking discovery and the battle for family loyalty. The news that Audra is Nick Newman's daughter has sent shockwaves through Genoa City, and the ripple effects are only just beginning to unfold. Audra, the woman who has carefully curated an image of power and mystery, has now been thrust into the very heart of the Newman family. But while this revelation rocks the business world, the emotional impact on Nick is even greater. For the first time in his life, he is faced with a child he never knew existed, and the question of who her mother is looms large over their newfound relationship. With every passing moment, Nick realizes that this is no longer just about familia, it's about responsibility, redemption, and the legacy of the Newman name. The search for Audra's mother, a puzzle Nick cannot solve alone. When Nick first learned of Audra's existence, he was blindsided. The fact that she was his daughter was a revelation that caught him off guard, not just because of the years that had been lost, but because of the sheer impossibility of piecing together the details. Nick had lived a life full of fleeting romances, passionate affairs, and entangled relationships. The whirlwind of his youth had left behind a trail of broken hearts, unanswered questions, and, most importantly, memories that had long since faded into the past. In a city like Genoa City, where no relationship is ever truly private, Nick had thought he had seen it all, but this discovery was something entirely different. The more Nick thought about it, the more he realized that he couldn't even remember the woman who had been Audra's mother. His mind raced through the years, trying to connect the dots. Was it someone he had been within a brief, unremembered fling, or was it a deeper relationship he'd buried beneath the weight of his personal struggles? Nick knew one thing for Soraya: couldn't let Audra remain in the dark about her origins. The mystery of her mother was a puzzle that Nick felt compelled to solve, not just for his own peace of mind, but for Audra's. But as Nick dug deeper into his past, he found that the task was far more daunting than he had anticipated. His relationships, both serious and fleeting, spanned decades, and trying to remember each woman, each moment, was like trying to read a book whose pages had been torn out and scattered. Yet, with each passing day, Nick's resolve grew stronger. He couldn't, and wouldn't, abandon Audra now that he knew the truth. Despite his own confusion, Nick promised to find Audra's mother, no matter what it took. It was a promise he made with a father's love, even if the journey ahead was one fraught with challenges. Nick's new role, a father by responsibility, not by choice. As Nick cradled Audra in his arms, trying to make sense of the whirlwind that had swept through their lives, he made one thing clear: he would be there for her. Despite the shock, despite the unexpected turn of events, Nick understood that being a father wasn't about timing or readiness, it was about stepping up when needed. And now, he was needed more than ever. Audra, still processing the revelation of her true parentage, was confused and overwhelmed. She had spent so long building a life in Genoa City, carefully navigating the waters of power and influence, that the idea of a father was foreign to her. Her relationship with Tucker had been the closest thing to family she had known, and now that bond seemed to be slipping away. The man who had raised her, the man who had taught her the value of ambition and resilience, was no longer a part of her life in the same way. And so, the promise from Nick that he would take responsibility for her was both comforting and unsettling. Audra was about to enter a world of family dynamics that were more complex than she could have imagined, and Nick was determined to be her guide through it. But being a father to Audra would require more than just emotional support. Nick's relationship with his own family, specifically his father, Victor, had always been strained, and now, with a new daughter in the picture, those tensions were bound to escalate. Nick knew that Victor would not take kindly to this development. Victor had always been fiercely protective of his family, especially his legacy, and he was unlikely to accept Audra as part of the Newman clan without a fight. Nick's decision to bring Audra into the fold would trigger a battle for power, loyalty, and control over the Newman empire. The stakes were high, and neither Nick nor Victor was prepared to back down. Nick's struggle with Sharon, the divide between personal and professional life. As if the complications in his family life weren't enough, Nick also found himself caught between his personal and professional obligations. Sharon, the woman he had loved for years, was now faced with the reality of Nick's new role as Audra's father. Their relationship had been one of stability and understanding, but the revelation of Audra's existence threw everything into turmoil. Sharon, who had always been supportive of Nick, found herself questioning the future of their relationship. How could she compete with the responsibility that Audra now represented. Nick knew that Sharon deserved answers, and he had to find a way to balance his relationship with her and his newfound responsibility as Audra's father. But the road ahead was not going to be easy. Sharon had always been a constant in Nick's life, and their shared history made it difficult for him to imagine life without her by his side. But as the pressure from his family and his new role as a father intensified, Nick found himself making a painful decision. He would need to separate himself from Sharon, at least temporarily, to focus on the responsibilities he now had to Audra. Nick's decision to step back from his relationship with Sharon was not one he made lightly. Sharon was the mother of his children, and their bond was one built on years of trust and mutual respect. But Nick understood that, for now, Audra needed him more. The emotional weight of fatherhood was something Nick had to embrace, and in doing so, he had to put his personal desires aside. Sharon, for all her understanding, couldn't fill the void that Audra's discovery had created. Nick had to take control of his life, his family, and his legacy, even if it meant creating distance from the woman he had once considered his future. Victor and Nick, the imminent showdown. Victor Newman, the patriarch of the Newman family, has always been a man of power, pride, and unwavering control. Over the years, he has faced countless challenges to his empire, but none more personal than the tension between him and his son, Nick. Their relationship has always been complicated, filled with love, resentment, rivalry, and a deep desire for control. But now, with the revelation of Audra's true parentage, the stakes have been raised to a level neither father nor son can ignore. Nick knows that the moment he reveals Audra's true place in the Newman family, he will ignite a firestorm. Victor, who has always held the reins of the family with a firm hand, will not easily accept Audra as a legitimate member of the Newman clan. To Victor, family is a carefully constructed empire, and anyone who threatens that empire, whether through power or blood, becomes an immediate adversary. Nick's decision to include Audra in the family's legacy is an act of defiance, one that will undoubtedly set off a battle between father and son that will shake the very foundation of the Newman empire. Victor, never one to back down from a fight, will view this as yet another power struggle. He will see Audra not as a daughter, but as a threat to the control he has carefully cultivated over the years. As the patriarch, Victor believes that he alone should decide who is worthy of being part of the Newman legacy, and he will not take kindly to Nick's unilateral decision. The power struggle between father and son will escalate into a full-blown war, with both sides determined to prove that they are the rightful heirs to the Newman throne. The tensions between Nick and Victor will come to a head as they face off in a battle for the future of the Newman family. Audra, caught in the middle of this conflict, will have to decide where her loyalties lie. Will she choose her biological father, Nick, and join the Newman family's struggle for control? Or will she navigate the treacherous waters of Genoa City on her own terms, unencumbered by the legacy of a family that never fully accepted her? Conclusion: the battle for legacy and loyalty. The discovery of Audra's true parentage has set in motion a chain of events that will forever alter the course of Genoa City's most powerful family. Nick, once content to stand in the shadows of the Newman empire, now finds himself thrust into the role of protector and father, responsible for a daughter he never knew he had. As he navigates the complicated relationships with Sharon, Audra, and his father, Victor, Nick's future will be defined by the choices he makes in the coming months. Victor's response to this revelation will determine whether he will embrace Audra as part of his family or wage a war to maintain control of his empire. And Audra, now fully aware of her connection to the Newmans, will have to choose her path carefully, knowing that the decisions she makes will shape her future, the future of the Newman family forever. The battle between Nick and Victor is only just beginning, and Genoa City will be watching as the most powerful men in town square off for control of their legacy.